Alright everybody, this is Austin at the Best I Can Afford Antiques channel, and I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about Chinese cloisonné. Now, most of my Japanese cloisonné is from the 1800s, so this is a bit of an unfair comparison. These pieces before you are not from the 1800s. They are 20th century, likely even mid to late 20th century. So again, this is an unfair comparison, but the modern Chinese cloisonné does bear some resemblance to the older Chinese cloisonné. So we're kind of safe talking about it and using these newer pieces as examples, and they somewhat apply, the things I'm going to be talking about, somewhat apply to older pieces of Chinese cloisonné as well. Now, for example, one thing we can note pretty instantly is that any of the real cloisonné always has background cloisons. This is wired cloisonné. It's a brass pot filled with enamel, or covered in enamel. I paid $2 for this bad boy. I don't know if it says anything under here. Let's see. It doesn't appear to, but I do really like that counter enamel right there. Whoa, focus, chill out. So yeah, I think this is a pretty little pot. And you can see the gold cloisons, these clouds back here. Now, cloisons actually tell you a fair bit. These background cloud cloisons actually tell you a fair bit about the piece. Sometimes it's age, sometimes the meaning behind some of the metaphors. Yes, sometimes the clouds are various metaphors too. There we go. Now these clouds are pretty much all the same. This is also a pretty little piece, made in China. Bright shiny sticker. It is not very old, but I still respect this. I mean, somebody worked on it, somebody made something pretty, and I like that. Chinese cloisonné isn't really what I collect. Not that I would turn down a 19th, 18th, 13th century Chinese piece of cloisonné. You can see these clouds are just a little bit different. They almost look like paws instead of clouds. Now that could be just be a rookie maker, or who knows. But yeah, I'm sure you're already noticing that in Chinese cloisonné there are no open backgrounds. So let's talk about a little Chinese piece just real quick. I mean, a little Japanese piece just real quick. You'll see there's a big open black background. To me, right away, instantly, if I see any sort of background like that, it is Japanese. You see where all the gold flakes are? I would definitely think that that is a Japanese piece just looking at it, just seeing the big open background. Now, they used a bunch of different background cloisons for the old Chinese cloisonné. So, I mean, it's not always going to be clouds. Sometimes it's just lines or stripes or, there's quite a variation. So I don't want to just say you're just going to see clouds on it, but if there's cloisons in the background, like there are here, then it's probably Chinese. Now, there's a bit of an overlap in the early Meiji era when Japan started making a bunch of their own cloisonné. They copied a lot of Chinese techniques. And I mean, it's the way it's gone back and forth between China and Japan, and pottery and art and cloisonné, and they just trade back and forth on tons of stuff. So it's completely understandable. I get it. But sometimes in the early Japanese pieces, you will find background cloisons, because not only were they still copying the Chinese technique, but they hadn't invented the technique to, or they hadn't invented the enamel to fill in an open background like this yet. So Japan invented that, and as far as I can tell, they're the only ones that ever utilized it, getting big open backgrounds on cloisonné pieces. Sorry. So yeah, typically you'll see brass. Now this, we'll talk a little bit about Chinese plique jour, because it's kind of like cloisonné. They're taking a metal framework and filling it with glass and sometimes enamel. So I thought it would behoove us to cover that just a little bit, because it is sometimes considered a type of cloisonné, especially if it's filled with enamel. Now, there are many, many different types of plique jour, but this is Chinese plique jour, and it's almost always covered in the same scales, or yeah, it's usually scales, but this is all Chinese, and I do think it's very pretty no matter what. It almost seems like this one could benefit from like an internal cleaning, but you see the pierce design of this main flower here. He's pretty cool. So yeah, set him back gently in his little cargo area there, and here's another little one. So yeah, I think a lot of the time in the past, at least certain countries' plique jour was they would make a metal frame, and then they would cover it in wiring just like this, and then they would just fill that in with glass or enamel or what have you, and then they would use acid, maybe even through this hole right here, to melt the object inside of it, the metal, and then it would come out as just this little glass figure here. Now someone corrected that and said that in China, like right now, there was a video and everything, so I'm saying it's correct. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not saying this guy's wrong at all. He's definitely right. In China, it showed them beating this wire framework over an object and then just filling it with glass, and they didn't have to melt anything or do anything. It was just done like that. I think a motorcycle just drove by my house and my dog's freaked out. Are you guys done? Are we cool? Best I can afford to edit there. Okay. So then we come to a different type of Chinese cloisonné. Now Japan made this as well. Good lord. So this is called open work cloisonné. And you can see that they've left the background completely empty of any decoration or enamel. So that's what that means. It's just open. It's not filled in all the way. There's open cavities where there could be enamel, but they have decided not to. So that's open work cloisonné. And then this is open work cloisonné with twisted wires instead of the normal Cloisonne wires that they used in this one. And obviously you can see the difference. I'm sure you're seeing how the one Cloisonne is flat versus this one that looks all spirally and kind of weird. So anytime you see that kind of weirdish wire to that, that's a twisted wire. So in the past especially, I mean, someone would have to sit there for literal weeks just twisting little wires with a couple of pairs of pliers, I assume, and just repeating that over and over and over for like miles just to cover a vase like this. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is open work cloisonné again, but this is twisted wire open work cloisonné. This is actually a pretty vase. I kind of like this one. But yeah. Okay, so I mean, I think we're seeing a fair variety of Chinese cloisonné. I think this is maybe hopefully helpful. I'm trying to think of what other differences I've noted in Chinese cloisonné. Definitely the background cloisons. That's like the main thing. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm done there. This is Austin at the Best I Can Afford Antiques channel. If I think of anything else, I'll come back to it. We can talk more about it. Chinese cloisonné started in like the Ming Dynasty, and Japan actually had to play catch up and try and copy them in like the early 1800s. So I mean, China had been going on this art for quite a while before Japan caught on. And yeah, I think it's pretty neat. I think all of this stuff is pretty neat. I hope you guys like this video. This is Austin of the Best I Can Afford Antiques channel. I appreciate you stopping by. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want. I love you guys.